Hi, BookTube, and welcome to another fiction review. I don't know what your schooling was like, so I'm asking this as an open question. Did you ever have a lesson in school? In my case, it was done by our guidance counselor, where they set up one of those ethical dilemmas. Let me give you an example. It'll be something like, imagine 6 people are shipwrecked on a deserted island. Now, there are enough materials on that island to construct a boat. However, the boat is only large enough for 2 people to take it, sail away, and go get help. There's no guarantee that those 2 people will come back in time. So which 2 people get to go on the boat? Now, mostly what I learned from those lessons myself wasn't which are the 2 correct people to put in the boat, but instead how hard it is to get consensus on a decision where it's a crisis, and also what happens to the decision makers. That is, what the decision makers reveal about themselves as they discuss the problem is sometimes quite shocking. Now, I don't know, but I'm wondering whether today's novel was inspired by one of those kind of lessons. Today, we are reviewing 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. It's a 2022 publication by Electric Monkey, which is a HarperCollins imprint. And let's go straight into our usual first question. Can I pitch this novel? 5 Survive is one of those claustrophobic thrillers where all the action happens in a confined space, where there are lives at stake, and where time is too precious to waste. The principal characters are all under the age of 25, and you would think, being that young, that they wouldn't have anything in their past that they needed to hide or deny yet. But when a hidden gunman demands that they reveal a secret, it isn't easy to work out which of the group's many secrets the shooter might want. Let's go straight into the book details. How long is it? How did I get it? And how much did I pay? The paperback version is 386 pages long. However, the font looks pretty large. It looks at least 12 point, and there is enough space between the lines. Just to give you a visual picture, you could write in between the lines, not that you would necessarily want to. And each chapter also has 3 blank pages before you get to the next one. So I'd say the actual reading page count is more like 362. Now, the UK full price is £8.99, but as you know, I did not have to pay for this book because this was a very kind birthday gift from the lady who loves yellow. Now, I have to hurry up and script and record this video because she was so attracted to the book cover that she really wanted to borrow it. And I think also the back cover write-up is really well done, and it hooked her just like it hooked me. I'm going to read it to you. Red Kenny is on a road trip with 5 friends when their RV breaks down in the middle of nowhere. This is no accident. Someone is out there, and someone wants one of them dead. With 8 hours until dawn, the 6 friends must escape or work out which one of them is the target. Buried secrets will be forced to light, and not everyone will survive the night. This is where I would normally give you a little author biography, but I think it's fair to say that Holly Jackson is still working on her biography. She was born in 1992, so she's got decades of biography to make yet. She was born in London, although she did also spend some of her childhood in Buckinghamshire. And there is a repeated online story, which I'm going to go with, which says that she was writing stories from the time she was very young, and that she did write her first novel, not the one she's most proud of, but nevertheless a good practice run, when she was 15. Holly attended the University of Nottingham, where she got a first-class degree and master's in English. Her first novel, The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, was published in 2020, and it sold. It remained on the New York Times bestseller list for a year. Total sales to date are in the multiple millions. Her books have been translated into 25 different languages, and she has won a National Book Award, the Waterston's Children's Book of the Year Award, and that's not all. And you know, pretty good to have all that sorted before your 33rd birthday, I'd say. We'll talk about the setting now. The setting is a 30-foot motorhome, to be precise, 31 feet. The narrator repeats this fact about the length of the vehicle, and at one point adds, apparently that extra foot was so important they couldn't round it down. Well, 30 foot or 31 foot, it really isn't enough space for 6 terrified passengers. Outside the motorhome it is perpetually dark. The chapter titles tell us that the story begins at 10 p.m. and ends at 6 a.m. the next morning. And outside is remote, the dead end on a dirt road somewhere deep in the South Carolina forest. There are plot points carefully laid down, which ensure that the characters are not able to contact the outside world or leave in search of help. The tension that builds inside this recreational vehicle, it turns it into an emotional pressure cooker. Regarding the narrative voice, there's a first-person viewpoint, and which is always the best as well for a sense of immediacy and full immersion into this tense situation. We are with Red Kenny. Redford is her full name. She's not an unreliable narrator, but she is distracted, overburdened, and fearful about something, and that's even before anything bad begins to happen. We learn some reasons for her state of mind early on, and those reasons should elicit some reader sympathy and concern for her. And Red is honest with the reader. We know she has a secret, but the nature of that secret is revealed carefully, and it keeps the tension high because you're not sure if her secret is such a bad one. And that sets up a situation where, as much as anyone might want to cheer for Team Red, there is this nagging suspicion that we may be inside the mind of the person who is causing all the ugly stuff that is happening in the book. Now, the book is structured in chapters which cover 1 hour apiece. Each chapter averages 43 pages, and they took me 30 to 45 minutes to read. So it was a lovely pacing because it very much felt almost like reading time equaled living time. And that pacing added to that sense of immediacy as well, because you were going at the speed of, or so you felt, the way things were actually happening. Dialogue dominates over narration, and that's because the situation makes talking absolutely necessary. We also get chunks of Red's ruminations. These are short, fragmented sentences which give us a sense of her mind flitting from present to past, revisiting things she doesn't really want to remember, but she can't seem to stop herself, as in this section that I'll read now from page 9. Red swallowed, looked down even farther to hide her eyes from Maddie. Not worrying wasn't a choice, not one Red had, anyway. In her darkest moments, those winter nights when she had to wear her coat to bed over 2 pairs of pajamas and 5 pairs of socks and still shivered anyway, Red sometimes wished she were Maddie Lavoie, to live in that warm house as though it belonged to her, to have everything they had and everything she didn't anymore. Stop that. She felt a flush in her cheeks. Shame was a red feeling, a hot one, just like guilt and anger. Why couldn't the Kennys heat their home on guilt and shame alone? But things would get better soon, right? Real soon. That was the plan. That was what it was all for. And then everything would be different. That phrase, shame, was a Red feeling. Holly Jackson likes to play word games with Red's name, and these are gratifying little bits of fun with language which I enjoyed spotting. Now, if I could make one criticism, and it's very small, it would be the first one of these word games. Well, it happens a little too early in the opening sentences. Here's how the book opens. Here and not, red and black. One moment there, another gone. Red in this sentence, believe it or not, is the character's name and not a reference to the color. I felt that particular play on the meaning of red, it just came a little bit too soon. You know, it was a paragraph before the viewpoint character's name is actually stated. And so my reading stalled for a few minutes. Right at the start of the book, well, I had to back up and read the first paragraph again, and then a third time, along with the second paragraph, to be certain that I'd made sense of that red and black sentence. It wasn't the end of the world, but I put it out there in case it rings true for anybody else's reading experience. Does the novel fit a genre label? Actually, the more important question is whether it fits into its selling category. It's a young adult book, but it's got some pretty adult content. I was reading an article on the Penguin Books website, and I'll try to find the link and put it in the description box. But it said that about 1/3 of young adult novel sales are purchased by the age group between 30 and 44. Okay, now that makes you wonder, like, what does the term young adult even mean anymore? And what is it going to mean in another 10 years? There was a time when the classification didn't exist, and so naturally when it began, it had meaning. But now I'm starting to wonder, to you guys out loud, is it a label that's becoming less helpful than it was? I think plenty of adults would enjoy Five Survive, and it would be interesting to watch and see where Holly Jackson takes her writing from here. And so, by labeling her work young adult, will it make people misjudge her writing ability, or will it limit her potential audience? I don't know, just putting that out there. Our next question is, what, if anything, stands out as an aspect of the novel or its author? Well, what satisfied me most about this book was that no character came away perfectly innocent. And it was those shades of guilt which would make amazing ethical discussions. You could get some very lively conversations going in a book group, I think, if you ask questions like, which character's decisions and actions were the worst, morally speaking, and why? Or which characters were dishonest, even criminal, and yet they don't seem like bad people to you? Or which characters tried to do what they believed was right, but they became wrong in the process? All very good questions. Not all loose ends in this book, I might say, are tied up nicely, and people differ as to whether they like that or don't like that in a plot-driven novel. Personally, I liked that it gave me space to speculate. I love being able to imagine what decisions will certain characters make beyond the book, out into the world beyond the book. Is there problematic content in this book? Well, there is violence and pretty much constant threat of violence. Descriptions of killings, they're not long-winded, but Holly Jackson uses very good language to describe the results, and that will leave vivid mental images. Now, what is the purpose and context of that problematic content? Well, the darkness is what makes this a moral novel. The characters are pushed to their limits, to the limits of their emotional endurance, so that they reveal what they would otherwise keep to themselves. It forces them to discard all those social masks that we have, and you get right down to sort of their baseline character. Right. Any suggestions for related or follow-up reading? I can think of two novels that put characters in a tense, inescapable situation and encourage discussion and thinking about moral issues. And they are A Meal in Winter by Hubert Mingarelli and also The Dinner by Herman Koch. Both of these, if you liked Five Survive and you're wanting a way, say, to transition from young adult books into adult literary fiction, but did not feel certain where to start, these novels would be comfortable jumping off points, I think. They're not very long, and they do the same thing. They play with the tension between characters and the decisions that they have to make. And that's another review in the can, or in my cloud drive, I guess. You have not seen a non-fiction review from me in a while, have you? And that's because I'm tackling another sizable book that covers the history of British and French involvement in the Middle East from the First World War until the creation of the State of Israel. It draws on some material from government files that were recently declassified, i.e. the last 20 years. And I wouldn't call it cheery reading, not at all, but it's definitely enhancing my historical perspective. And for fiction, I've gone back home, back to British Columbia, to read a work written by the first Canadian Parliamentary Poet Laureate. I hope your February reading is going really well also, and so I'll catch up with you again in a few days' time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.